holding that process. More than 10 years ago, in the 70s, there was a meta-analysis of parents, and to see whether or not there was a difference between how parents parented boys and girls in terms of parental autonomy support. And there was significant difference. So for boy children, parents employed this autonomy support technique much more so than they did for girl children. There was research a year ago that showed that that's drastically changed, actually. So that there was no significant difference between how parents were interacting with boy and girl children in this very early stage. However, there was a massive bias in that the analysis heavily drew on studies from the global north, of course. So we don't know a global picture, and it also drew on studies that were about children between 0 and 18. So the 0 to 2-year-old studies were still limited. Yes. Yeah, more research needed, essentially. Much more research needed, and again, looking to this bias. So because of the attachment theory, there is so much research literature on the role of mother, maternal depression. The impact of that. There's nothing on the wider care network, which is the reality of most families around the world. So with UNICEF, together with UNICEF Lego Foundation, we've been looking at the constructs of parenting, which are caregiving, providing nutrition, healthcare, hygiene, etc., stimulation, which is, if you like, introducing different objects and experiences, or play for short, support and responsiveness, structure and socialization, and this piece here that UNICEF and Lego Foundation say there just really is a lack of research about what's going on in the early childhood, and this is so linked to constructs of gender and identity, and we just don't know enough about what's happening there. Yes. Attachment. Early studies are showing that in many cases children are actually attaching to other caregivers. It's not always mum, and that's also been an area that's been under research. Communication. The impact of this focus on maternal attachment. This is honestly one of the highest quality parenting programs out there. It's the strongest evidence base. But there is a picture of a male caregiver. But this is unusual. If you look at all of the communications out there, we've been scanning them, it's just unbelievable how reinforced this concept of a woman's role in caregiving is. Some of the ones we've been looking at, but we've looked at a list of 40 and we see the same over and over again. But the construct is very much around the woman's role. Window of opportunity. So 5.4 is probably more familiar to this room. We look a lot at 4.2 within the SDG framework, and we particularly look at SDG indicator 4.2.1, which is that children under the age of 5 are developmentally on track for health, learning and psychosocial development. We would argue that the wording of that came from designed by committee as opposed to anything that from the neuroscience would come up with. But so, it's the first time we've got to focus on what is happening to children, and the first time we can begin to hope for looking for a different, more equal outcome across countries. This again will probably be more familiar to this room. Combining paid and unpaid work per day by region. We're committed, I will say as a foundation, in our work going forward to to think about rebalancing the male and female working time. I am troubled by, and I'm not sure what to do with it. I still think all of this echoes back to this concept of a nuclear family, which always challenges me with some of this. But we are committed to thinking very deeply about male caregivers' roles and how we support a shift in this balance. Particularly as a company, I think what we can bring to the table, investing heavily in marketing and advertising over years, is this dimension around social norms that we've all been getting at. I think that can be the value of a corporate entity working together with a UNICEF, working together with, in partnership with government and with, most importantly with communities, to really push together to try and shift social norms around some of these constructs. Gender and workforce, I don't know if it's familiar, that sign, but it was the 1 million frontline health worker drive that the Gates Foundation championed. But it's a massive barrier for us is how few men are working in terms of outreach to families, and how that reinforces again some of these images. Conditional cash transfers. There's questions from Save the Children and others about, does payment of conditional cash transfers to women reinforce women's role as the primary caregiver? I'll leave that one with you. I'm not well equipped to answer it. Yes, but we also know that with that there's an opportunity to be thinking about social norms and information as opposed to just cash, because cash that allows you to access low quality ECD is actually not beneficial to children's outcomes. So, skip through this. The thing I'll leave you with, so this, like I said, is a smorgasbord of some of the things we're working on. We're very open, and that we need to be doing better, we need to be pushed. But what I will say is WHO and UNICEF are coming together under this framework of the SDG to come to align on a new nurturing care framework. There's massive scale up in parenting programs. There's massive opportunity for new finances coming into this sector, and there is desperate need for us to revisit these concepts around parenting programs, both from a neuroscience and I'm sure from a gender perspective. And this is the timeline of when that community are looking for feedback. So you can see it's running from now. October 2017 until May 2018, but I think anything that this group feels moved to do, or if you know people in your network that could contribute to making sure that there is a clear gender lens on this, I think would be wonderful.
Time for a few questions around discussion. Put your hands up and see. Oh, quite a few. So shall we take these first three and then we'll go for another?
Okay. There are several different tracks that one might follow there, but
yeah.
The sort of takeaway point that I came with was your suggestion that current research would imply that it would be better for the child's development if they have a web of support. And then this might, if we could tie this in with the idea that the mother doesn't have to feel that it is her responsibility, and that the society and families and the state could take that, and the evidence seems to be very strong, almost overwhelming, doesn't it? Then we've got two developments that could go in sync towards encouraging more gender liberation. I just want to put that on the table and see what you think.
Well, that's my hope. That's why I raised it, as I was hoping that that might resonate with the room. It's like I say, I'm not coming as a gender expert within this, but it is my hope that somewhere in this is a window of opportunity for us to really rethink.
Do we have some more comments?
Okay, I would strongly support all the stuff you said about early childhood being very, very important. But I would strongly, strongly challenge the way in which you're framing this. The implication someone might draw from this is it's all done and dusted by 3 years or 4 years.
No, that's
Well, I know that's what I do
We've
been through this. At OECD, we ran a big project on neuroscience and education, and we looked at this very carefully. And I have to say, when those charts went up, it's all done, the critical periods are set, it's all, and there's two aspects to this that are very, very dangerous. The first is people get very agitated. If the kid hasn't done this by 24 months, it's all over. We've got to play them Beethoven to make sure they've passed through this. That's the first point. The second is on investment strategy. We ignore the increasing evidence about the plasticity of the brain throughout life, and it all goes into early years investment. And we've seen that happening, influencing policy decisions from exactly this kind of presentation. So, I really strenuously recommend that you don't use that as a way of framing it, or add in all the evidence about the plasticity throughout increasingly the adult life, the capacity to learn, the capacity at any point that people can come back in and make changes.
Sure. Did you want to take one question? I'm happy to answer or take
Do you
one,
want to answer? Shall I have a question?
So, thanks, Selden. I think that, I won't